Stay in the game, the art of leading, when the work gets repetitive. When the excitement fades, leadership begins. There's a moment in every leader's journey that no one warns you about. It's not when you fail. It's when things stop feeling new. The project is running smoothly. The meetings are predictable. The team is stable. The chaos that once challenged you has turned into routine. And somewhere inside you realize, this doesn't feel as exciting as it used to. You're still showing up. You're still leading. You're still performing. But the spark that once made the work feel electric has turned into a slow, steady hum. This is the phase where most leaders quietly lose their edge. Not because they don't care, but because comfort disguises itself as control. And here's the truth most leadership books don't tell you. The hardest part of leadership isn't the start. It's the stretch that comes after success. Not the hustle of getting there, the grind of staying there. Because consistency, not creativity, separates the good from the great. The real test of mastery isn't how you perform when it's exciting, it's how you perform when it's ordinary. Today we're going to talk about the art of staying in the game. How to lead with energy, focus, and purpose when the repetition sets in. When you've already proven yourself once, and now have to keep proving it again, and again, and again. Let's begin. Leadership behavior number 6. Reframe repetition as refinement. Repetition feels boring until you realize what it really is. Rehearsal for mastery. The best leaders don't get bored with repetition. They get sharper through it. Think about it. Every elite performer in any field, athletes, musicians, entrepreneurs, spends more time refining than reinventing. They understand that repetition isn't redundancy. It's reinforcement. When you see repetition as stagnation, you'll resent the routine. When you see repetition as refinement, you'll embrace the process. The amateur says, "I've already done this." The master says, "I can do this better." Every meeting, every conversation, every decision is another chance to tighten your craft, to raise your personal baseline until excellence becomes your default. The leaders who stay sharp aren't chasing constant variety, they're chasing deeper precision. Repetition doesn't dull them, it defines them. Leadership mindset reflection. Where in your leadership have you mistaken repetition for stagnation? What could happen if you treated every repeated task as a chance to refine, not repeat? Write one sentence that shifts your mindset from routine to refinement. Leadership behavior number 5. Anchor motivation in meaning, not novelty. Motivation built on excitement always fades. Motivation built on meaning endures. Early in leadership, it's easy to stay fired up. Every new challenge feels like discovery. But over time, the novelty disappears. And that's when meaning has to take over. If you only lead well when it's exciting, your growth will always be limited by your emotions. The leaders who sustain impact don't rely on adrenaline. They rely on alignment. They wake up driven, not because something new is happening, but because something important is. They've learned that passion comes and goes, but purpose stays. So when you find yourself in a stretch of sameness, stop asking, "How do I stay motivated?" Start asking, "Why does this still matter?" When you reconnect to meaning, even the mundane becomes mission again. Leadership mindset reflection. What part of your daily work has lost emotional energy lately? Why did it matter to you when you first started? What purpose can you reattach to that task to give it meaning again? Leadership behavior number 4. Find challenge in consistency. Most leaders chase challenge through change. They get restless, so they start something new. They get bored, so they shake things up. But the highest performers don't escape repetition. They elevate it. They find challenge in how consistently they can perform under predictable conditions. There's a quiet pride in showing up with excellence when no one's clapping, when no one's watching, when no one's awarding most steady of the year. It's easy to be elite when things are exciting. It's transformative to be elite when things are routine. Consistency is its own competitive edge. Because while others are chasing novelty, you're building reliability. And reliability compounds into trust, influence, and credibility. So if things feel repetitive right now, congratulations. you're in the perfect place to prove your professionalism. Leadership mindset reflection. Where are you craving newness when you actually need consistency? How could staying consistent in this season become your new form of challenge? Leadership behavior number 3. Shift from performing to stewarding. When the work feels repetitive, it's easy to slip into performance mode, checking boxes, delivering results, maintaining pace. But the leaders who sustain greatness make a subtle but profound shift. They move from performing the work to stewarding the mission. Performance says, how do I look while doing this? Stewardship says, how can I protect, strengthen, and advance this? Stewardship reframes even small tasks as acts of responsibility, not routine. That's what keeps your leadership from feeling mechanical. It keeps it sacred. Because leadership isn't just what you do, it's what you carry. You're not just running a process. You're guarding a culture. You're maintaining a mission. You're setting tone for people who haven't even joined the team yet. When you treat leadership as stewardship, you stop needing excitement to feel engaged, because responsibility itself becomes a source of meaning. Leadership mindset reflection. What part of your leadership have you been performing instead of stewarding? What would shift if you treated that same responsibility as something you're entrusted with, not just assigned to? Leadership behavior number 2. Protect your standards in the ordinary. Excellence isn't built in moments of inspiration. It's maintained in moments of indifference. Anyone can bring their best when the stakes are high. The defining question is, who are you when the stakes feel small? This is where most leaders drift. They stop preparing as hard for routine meetings. They get casual with follow-ups. They do good enough instead of great anyway. But legacy-level leaders never let ordinary moments lower extraordinary standards. They understand that reputation isn't built on highlights. It's built on habits. Every unimportant detail becomes another vote for the kind of leader they are when no one's watching. And over time, those invisible moments add up to visible mastery. The mundane is where most people coast, but it's also where the few separate themselves. Leadership mindset reflection. Where have you quietly lowered your standards because the task felt too small to matter? What would it look like to recommit to excellence in the details? Not for validation, but for identity. Leadership behavior number 1. Reignite energy through development, not distraction. When leadership feels repetitive, most people try to escape boredom by adding distractions. New projects, new tools, new initiatives. But distraction doesn't bring back energy. Development does. Leaders who stay engaged long-term always have a personal growth track running parallel to their professional one. They read, reflect, learn, or stretch in some way that reminds them, I'm still growing too. Nothing reignites passion like progress, even small, private progress. When your people see you learning, they start learning again. When your team sees you developing, they feel permission to grow. A stagnant leader creates stagnant energy. A developing leader creates contagious momentum. So before you reinvent your whole role, ask, have I simply stopped growing in it? Because maybe the work isn't boring. Maybe you're just overdue for evolution. Leadership mindset reflection. Where do you need to stretch again? Not for a result, but for renewal. What's one small development action you'll take this week that makes you feel alive in your leadership again? Leadership mindset challenge. This week, don't escape repetition. Elevate through it. Here's your challenge. 1. Reframe one repetitive task as a chance to refine your mastery. Reconnect that task to the mission behind it. 3. Pick one ordinary responsibility and execute it with extraordinary attention. Take one small personal development step to reignite your engagement. At the end of the week, ask yourself, what changed when I stopped fighting routine and started mastering it? Leadership isn't about finding excitement. It's about creating excellence. If this episode reminded you why discipline outlasts excitement, follow and subscribe to Leadership Mindset Daily. Then share it with a leader who's learning to stay sharp through the ordinary. This is Leadership Mindset Daily. Mindset matters. Leadership matters. You matter. Follow Leadership Mindset Daily on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Threads, and X for your daily dose of proven leadership development tips, tricks, and techniques. See you tomorrow.